Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we get started, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nurul Azifah Karamah with ID number 20400124007, and I made this video formally to complete the assignment of English Phonetics and Phonology, assignment 12. So let's get started to the first question is, to the best of your knowledge, is learning intonation essential? Why? And explain your argument. For me, I would say yes. Learning intonation is essential because it plays a key role in expressing meaning beyond just words. Intonation helps speakers convey their emotion, attitudes, such as anger, surprise, gratitude, or disappointed. It shows how something is said, whether with rising, falling, or fall pitch, which directly affect how listener understand the speaker intonation. While word stress focuses on individual words, intonation is about the speaker voice patterns throughout the utterance. The reference from book English Phonetics, Basic Theory and Practice in English Language Pedagogy also highlight how intonation boundaries of sentence. For example, is raising tone may signal a question, while falling tone indicates a complete statement that helps listener follows the structure of a conversation more easily. In addition, the next mention that intonation differs not only between language but also among English varieties like British, American, and Irish English. Therefore, understanding intonation helps learners communicate more naturally and clearly, no matter the accent or context. Without it, the speaker might sound emotionless or unclear, even if their grammar is correct. And the second one is, do you agree with saying that intonation can be categorized into a last for relative pitch level? Why? Explain your argument. So, yes, I agree that intonation can be categorized into at least four relative pitch levels, as clearly explained in both you've provide that the text describe these four levels as low pitch. One is normal pitch, two is high pitch, and extra high pitch is 4. These pitch levels are important because they reflect how natural spoken English function in real-life communication, especially during normal social interaction. The categories is not just theoretical but also practical. It help linguists and learners observe and analyze how native speakers use voice various to convey meaning and emotion. Pitch variation plays a vital role in expressing their speaker's emotion and attitude, such as anger, surprise, or gratitude. It also helps to signal whether a sentence is a question or a statement or an exclamation. The second explain that these pitch levels are most commonly used in everyday conversation, are useful in identifying intonation patterns. For example, falling patterns might be written as 2 plus 3 plus 1, while a rising pattern could appear as 2 plus 3 plus 3. These numerical patterns, along with a row symbol, downward for falling, upward for rising, and rightward for flat, help learners visualize the melody of speech. The theoretical foundation for this can be linked into intonation theories by linguists such as Alauddin, who emphasized that pitch movements contribute the grammatical, attitudinal, and discourse function of speech. Furthermore, the second stressed that although the patterns can be described and taught through method of intonation requires real-time interaction and listening to native speakers. Intonation is closely tied to emotion and meaning, which makes it best learned naturally rather than solely through textbook. In conclusion, categories intonation into 4 relative pitch levels is not only valid but also essential for both analyzing and teaching. These levels offer a clear structure for understanding how pitch works in spoken English and are especially helpful for learners, including Indonesian students, to improve their spoken communication. And the third question is, do you agree with saying that mostly native English speakers use the general patterns of intonation in their speeches. Why? Explain your argument. So for me is yes. I agree that native English speakers generally follow common intonation patterns in their English. This happens because intonation is a natural part of language that native speakers acquire unconsciously from a young age through daily communication. As explained in the text, native speakers often use rising intonation for yes or no question and falling intonation for statement or commands. These patterns help convey meaning, emotion, and sentence structure clearly, even if the speaker isn't aware they're using them. This idea also supported by Halliday's theory, which states that intonation has three main functions: to show grammar, emotion, and the flow of information. Since native speakers use English naturally, their intonation often follows these regular patterns, which helps learners understand what they mean. For example, a raising tone might signal consently or a question, while falling tone might show confidence or that sentence is complete. This also points out that these common patterns are studied by linguists to help learners, especially Indonesian students, speak more clearly and naturally. Even though native speakers don't consistently study intonation, their consistent use of these patterns make their speech easier to follow. That's why learning from how a native speaker uses intonation is very useful for improving fluency and communication. And the last question is, what do you know of use the general patterns of intonation? Explain your answer best by describing types of sentence used to apply the general patterns of intonation with example. So the use of general patterns of intonation refers to the way speakers change the pitch of their voice to match the meaning or function of a sentence. Intonation helps learners understand whether someone is asking a question, making statement, expressing surprise, or showing emotion. These general patterns usually fall into three main types: falling, rising, and fall rise intonation, and each is commonly used with specific sentence types. Falling intonation is the most common pattern in English and is typically used in statement, commands, and VH question. In this pattern, the pitch of voice drops at the end of sentence, signaling that the thought is complete. For example, the statement one is "I'll be back in a minute." "I'll be back in a minute." And command "Close the door." Close the door. And we have question is "Whose bag is this?" The falling tone gives a sense of certainty, completeness. Rising intonation usually appears in yes/no question, that question showing stop and list except for the final item. Here the pitch of the voice goes up the end of the sentence, which often signals uncertainty of or a request from confirmation. For instance, is tag question, yes or no question. Does she come every day? And tag question is thoughtful. You're a lawyer, aren't you? And also list. We bought apples, orange, bananas, and grapes. This rising tone helps indicate that the speaker expecting a response or hasn't finished speaking. Foul raised intonation combines both patterns and is often used in polite suggestion, uncertainly, contrast, or when something is implied but not directly said. The pitch falls and rises again, creating a soft or reserved tone. For example, polite suggestion: "We could meet later," and uncertainty: "I guess it's okay." This pattern can make the speaker sound more thoughtful or hesitant. In conclusion, using general patterns of intonation currently helps the speaker sound more natural and makes the message easier to understand. Each type of sentence is matched with a typical intonation patterns that supports its meaning, showing how deeply connected intonation is to spoken English communication. Okay, maybe that's all of my explanation. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.